Why is F1 and IndyCar finding themselves in court, and what's going to happen over the rest of this Formula 1 season? This week I'm chatting about a bit of pretty much everything, so get ready because you've been summoned to the Steward's office. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Steward's office. I'm Syra, and I cannot believe we're already in November. That seems insane to me. There wasn't any race this past weekend, but I thought I'd have a podcast episode to update you on a couple of bits of courtroom news that we've had on top of what I think the rest of the season is going to pan out like. I'm going to kick off, right, with the courtroom news that we've had and what is going on, because IndyCar and Formula 1 have had teams or people in court, separate court cases to be fair. Let's have a bit of a chat about what's going on there, starting with IndyCar. Now, this particular court case is being held in London, even though IndyCar is an American race series, and it features their current champion, Alex Palou, and Arrow McLaren Racing, who are under that McLaren umbrella. And I've got to be honest, guys, this is a court case that has been a little while in the making. I think it all kicked off in like 2023. And basically, McLaren are currently wanting to sue Alex Palou. Now, Alex Palou is an extremely successful Spanish IndyCar driver. For those of you who don't watch IndyCar, I would recommend it, by the way. It's an incredible racing series. I really, really enjoy it. But he is a highly successful IndyCar champion. He's won the championship this year with Chip Ganassi Racing. However, there has been a lot of stuff bubbling in the background. Now, McLaren are wanting to sue Palou for a breach of contract. A couple of years ago, Alex Palou was meant to go to Arrow McLaren, their IndyCar team, and he had actually signed that contract saying that he was going to leave his current racing team, Chip Ganassi Racing, and move to that Papaya team. And there was a lot of news about it. For Arrow McLaren, this was such a big signing because people knew he was an incredible IndyCar driver. It ended up happening that Alex Palou backed out of that contract and stayed with his team, Chip Ganassi Racing, who he has now won multiple championships with. And the timing of when Palou ended up backing out of his contract is really interesting because it was after Oscar Piastri had signed his contract with McLaren's F1 team. And if you don't really know about this case, you might be wondering why in the world that would even be related, because the IndyCar team and the F1 team are obviously separate entities. Well, Alex Palou said that he was essentially promised a seat in F1, that if he performed well in IndyCar with McLaren, Zak Brown would give him the chance of being able to be in the F1 seat. And that was something that really attracted Alex Palou to the offer. He really wanted that chance at Formula 1. When Oscar Piastri announced that he had signed with McLaren, Alex Palou sat down, thought about it, and basically knew that there was no way he was getting into that F1 seat. He wasn't going to be able to get in there because of this up-and-coming talent, and McLaren had no intention of ever putting Alex Palou in a Formula 1 seat. Now, Zak Brown said that this wasn't true. They'd never ever promised Alex Palou a seat in F1 or dangled it in front of him as a sort of carrot to get him to sign the contract. What they had said is Palou was a sort of backup plan. He would be a reserve driver. If Lando or Oscar Piastri got sick at any point, he would step into the car, and if things didn't work out with Oscar Piastri, if he didn't perform very well in his rookie year, they would consider Alex Palou. But at no point was there a guarantee, or were they dangling the seat in front of him. And they really emphasised that point, whereas Palou is like, nope, that's what I was promised. And that's the reason I ended up backing out of that contract. But the reason why McLaren are now suing Alex Palou, because yes, Palou did actually sign the McLaren contract. It wasn't just in the negotiation stage. He was set to be an Arrow McLaren driver. But Zak Brown's point is that, okay, they didn't have Palou in the car, but along with the loss of Palou meant that they lost a whole ton of sponsors that wanted to sponsor Arrow McLaren because of Alex Palou. And let me tell you, if you think F1 cars have a lot of sponsors on them, IndyCar is insane, okay? Like, sponsors mean a lot in IndyCar, and there were big sponsors that were going to be coming with Palou. NTT was the main sponsor that McLaren brought up in this court case. They wanted to come over to Arrow McLaren because Alex Palou was going to be there, and when he didn't, they kind of reduced the amount that they were going to give to McLaren on top of cutting that contract and that partnership short. McLaren's point currently is, he kind of owes us for the loss in sponsors that we would have had. I think they'd mentioned also the loss in potential championships that they would have won with Palour at their team, because Palour's gone on to win multiple. On top of that, they also said that, because Palour wasn't there, they had to find another driver to fill that seat. And then they had to raise the salary of who is currently their number one driver, Pato O'Ward, because they had to elevate his status within the team. And on that championship front and the amount of money they lost, had Alex won a championship with them, Palour and his team were like, that car, the Arrow McLaren car over the last couple of years, there was no way in the world anyone could have won a championship in it. It didn't matter if I was in the car or not. I won the championships over the past couple of years, one because of my driving and also because Chip Ganassi Racing gave me a good car. It's a two-way street. I wouldn't have been able to do that in McLaren. Part of the issue with this court case at the moment is that there are texts saying that McLaren were basically covering their backsides when it came to all of this court stuff, and that was coming from McLaren employees at the time. On top of the fact that there were disappearing text messages involved, so on WhatsApp you can set your messages to disappear after a certain amount of time. McLaren had that in place. People were saying it's a company policy that we have disappearing messages. Palour's team was saying, though, that because of these disappearing messages, McLaren had destroyed evidence on purpose that really would have helped the case and proved that Palour and his team were right. We are still waiting, as of recording, on the culmination of what is going on with this and whether or not Alex Palou is going to have to pay out to McLaren. I personally can't imagine it really being the case. The figure is in the millions. It is absolutely insane, the amount that McLaren want to claim in losses, essentially. And even if they do end up winning the case per se, I don't think it's going to be for that full amount. I do think they're being a bit overambitious here. Alex Palou, I do feel for the guy, because he has come off the back of winning another championship, and instead of celebrating that championship and having downtime with his wife and his daughter and the rest of his family, he's been in a courtroom in London fighting against Arrow McLaren. So yeah, that's been an interesting one to hear about. And I've got to be honest, what I thought was quite interesting that came out of this court case as well is that when they spoke to Zach Brown about that signing with Oscar Piastri, he was like, well, I didn't actually make this decision. I didn't necessarily want Oscar in the car. It was actually Andrea Stella at the time. I want to say it was Andrea Stella and not Andrea Seidel, who is the team principal at the time. But essentially, that team principal at the time was who wanted Oscar in the car and not Zach Brown. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But that's the sort of IndyCar-based courtroom case that we've had. The other court case that we're having in motorsport at the moment that has been around a lot in motorsport news is the Felipe Massa and FIA FOM court case. And this all really kicked off, well, it started in 2008. The whole trying to take legal action started in 2023. Now, Massa wants the 2008 World Championship. That is what all of this is about. And he is taking the FOM, FIA, whoever it is, to court over this. And in particular, over Crashgate. I've got an entire episode on Crashgate that I did and why Felipe Massa is doing all of this, and I'll link that in the show notes if you guys want to take a listen to that. But I'll give a brief overview. That 2008 championship was exceptionally close between Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa. Lewis was in the McLaren at the time and Felipe Massa was in Ferrari. Ultimately, Lewis Hamilton walked away with that championship at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Singapore 2008 is really what Felipe Massa has gone to court over about Crashgate. And this is when Piquet crashed into a wall to benefit his teammate Fernando Alonso, to bring out a safety car and allow Alonso to place better by the end of the race. That safety car ended up causing Felipe Massa to come out at the points. Now, Crashgate didn't come out straight away. We found out about it later. There was a lot about it covered. It involved Flavio Briatore, who was then banned from the paddock, and it's why he was kind of out of F1 for so long, but now he's back. It was an entire thing, and it really did call the integrity of the sport into question, understandably, because at no point should team principals or drivers or anyone be orchestrating how a race is going to happen, how a safety car is going to happen, what's going to happen in the end. It's not in the spirit of racing or in any kind of sport, really. You don't orchestrate these things. And crashes in motorsport, I always think that's a really dangerous game to play because things could go wrong there. Thankfully, it was all right. But yeah, that all came out. However, Felipe Massa is blaming the cover-up of Crashgate and everything surrounding that on the fact that he didn't win the championship in 2008. Because his point is, when we found out that Crashgate had happened, when all of that came out, the results of the Singapore Grand Prix should have been completely cancelled. There should have been no points awarded for that Grand Prix. Should have just been null and void, right? And that's what he's going to court about. He says that it was a huge cover-up. They didn't cancel out the race. It wasn't right. He lost the championship because of it. And not only did he lose the championship because of it, but he also lost a ton of sponsorships and money that he would have gotten from being the world champion in 2008. And that's what he's also kind of suing over. He wants what the loss of money was for him from losing that world championship. It has been absolutely wild, right? Like, let's be honest, when the news came out in 2023 that he wanted to pursue legal action, everyone was wondering why the heck he had waited so long, guys, like insanely long, to get this championship and to take this to court. Because surely if you felt that strongly about it, you wouldn't have waited this long, guys. It's 2025. This was a 2008 championship, you know? That's insane to me that he would wait this long. And yeah, a lot of people just thought it's not going to be likely that he wins. Some people didn't think it was going to actually go to court. It has. People still don't think he's going to win it. Now, the defense are saying, right, okay, yeah, Crashgate happened. Fair enough. However, it was down to Felipe Massa's mistakes and mistakes on his team with Ferrari that also caused him to lose points in the championship against Lewis Hamilton. And they basically said, look, no one was driving at the level of Lewis Hamilton in 2008. Not Felipe Massa, not any of the other drivers. He was not going to win that championship, essentially. He made mistakes. His driving wasn't as good. The team made mistakes. And that's why. Which I thought, wow, they really went in on Felipe Massa there. But they're trying to win a court case and save themselves some money here. That court case is also ongoing and we don't have any sort of conclusion to it yet. I don't necessarily know how long this is going to go on for. I do think this is something that both the FOM and the FIA are really going to want to nip in the bud because they won't want the drivers sort of coming to court and being like, yeah, XYZ happened, this, that, and the other. I really don't know what is going to happen with this court case. It's still so bizarre to me. Like, I still can't fully wrap my head around it, but it is happening. I will keep you guys updated on both when we get updates, but it is wild that, yeah, at least the McLaren and Palour one, even though I don't agree with that either, right? At least that happened fairly quickly. Massa to wait this long to go to court, I just don't get it. Okay, let's have a chat about what's going to happen for the rest of this season though, because we only have 4 races and 2 sprints that are left. We have Brazil, then Vegas, Qatar and Abu Dhabi, so really not long left, and that championship is currently wide open for 3 drivers realistically, right? Max Verstappen has really clawed his way into trying to get into that championship fight, and there genuinely does seem like there's going to be a possibility that he could win it. And sure, it's going to be a harder route for him to win the championship compared to the other 2 drivers, but if anyone could do it, it would be Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri is currently in P2 in the championship, and he's had a bit of a loss of form since Baku. It hasn't been as great. The points that he's getting from races have not been wonderful. I mean, qualifying has seemed to struggle for him, and he's just not seemed as happy as the car as he has in the past. But while all that's been going on, it's allowed Lando Norris to take over the lead in the championship, albeit by 1 point, but it's still a lead for him. It's been a good couple of races for him, race wins, pole positions, and managing to close the gap and overtake Oscar Piastri in the championship. But if you were to ask me who's going to win the championship out in Abu Dhabi, I would not be able to tell you guys. You know, those sprint races can make a difference. Races that are coming up, I think, are going to be quite interesting to see how all 3 of those drivers adjust. We've seen Mercedes and Ferrari be able to steal points from those 2 drivers as well, and from those 2 teams. So it does depend on not only what the drivers that are fighting for that championship are doing, but the drivers that are behind them in the championship, the teams like Mercedes and Ferrari and what they're able to do. So yeah, if you were going to ask me who's going to win, I would not be able to tell you guys. I can't lie, I genuinely don't have a clue. That fight in the Constructors' Championship is also ongoing though. Mercedes and Ferrari are battling out for P2 at the moment, but Red Bull has managed to sneak up and catch up in that fight, and there was a point in the season that they seemed so far behind. I thought they were going to finish in 4th place, but there are 10 points separating Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull, so P2 down to P4 and the Constructors could be anyone's game at this point. We've got Williams, who have seemingly just solidified themselves in P5 at the moment. They're the only midfield team to break into the 100 points range. So yeah, I think for them, it looks like they could secure 5th unless something goes really badly wrong in the next couple of races. And Williams' luck, it could allow that to happen, to be fair. 6th down to 9th, though, is a lot like that P2 to P4 fight at the top of the grid. 12 points are separating P6 down to P9. The fight is really, really on there for those teams. We've got Racing Bulls that are trying to hold on to 6th place at the moment. Aston Martin are currently in 7th place. They could fall lower, and for Aston, there have been so many issues lately, and God bless Fernando Alonso, who is going through it this season. That man has had incredibly bad luck. But yeah, Aston Martin, I mean, they could get themselves into 6th, which still not great, but I'm sure they would take it over being in 9th place. We'll wait and see what happens there. So we've got Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, Kick Sauber and Haas. I can't believe I forgot Haas, but yeah, they're currently battling from 6th to 9th at the moment. And then in a lonely 10th place, and Alpine aren't moving from here, right? They are in 10th with only 20 points. Rough doesn't even cover the season that they've been having. Very curious what happens next season for them when they head over to the Mercedes power... I was going to say power bank, but it's the engine, it's the powertrain. I blame myself being slightly unwell while I'm recording this, guys, so please forgive me for that. But yeah, 4 races left. There's still so much to play for, both in the Drivers' Championship right at the top and up and down for the Constructors' Championship. It's gonna be pretty intense. All the teams are fighting for something at the end of the day. I don't think there's a single team that really doesn't have something that they're trying to gain from the last 4 races. Even Alpine in 10th place, right? I'm sure they would love to at least get a couple more points. Less salt in the wound, you know? But that is this week's podcast episode. We are heading out to Brazil over the weekend for a sprint. I do love Interlagos, Gabriel Bortoletto's home race, Lewis Hamilton being an honorary citizen. It's kind of his second home race. It's gonna be a good one. I have my fingers crossed, especially if we see some rain. But we'll wait and see what happens. Thank you guys so much for listening, and diolch yn fawr. Make sure you find me on TikTok and Instagram at Stewards_office, and I'll see you guys next time you're summoned to the Stewards office.